teaching teachers? Are you ready to transform your language classroom but feeling overwhelmed by challenges of switching to comprehension-based instruction? Today I'll uncover the secrets to overcome these hurdles and share game-changing strategies that will revolutionize your teaching and engage your students like never before. My name is Scott, and you're watching Immediate Immersion Live, where we're all about comprehension-based instruction in the modern language classroom. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. And welcome back. How's everybody doing on this fine Tuesday evening? I know some of you are still enjoying your summer. Some of you are getting ready to go back to school. That's me. Some of you already went back to school. My friends started back yesterday. I officially start on Monday. I'm starting a new school on Monday, and our kids will come on Wednesday of next week. So wherever you are, I hope you're enjoying your time. And I wanted to say welcome today and give you a few heads up things so that we can clear up some loose ends, I guess. I don't know what I was going to say. When you're live, I guess. So here are a couple of things. First, next week we're going to have a special encore presentation. I won't be live, but you can still watch. This will be one of our more popular previous lives. And what are we going to be talking about next week? We are going to be talking about, where did it go? I have completely lost what we're going to be talking about. I know, let me go over here. I don't know why it just escaped me all of a sudden, but it's already up on YouTube, ready to be to go out. And let's get this. Guess when you're live, you're really live. Oh, okay. Classroom management. We'll be talking about classroom management next week. So sorry about that. I couldn't think about it at all. So classroom management we'll be talking about. If you've watched it already, it's a great time to revisit it. And if you haven't seen it yet, it was a while ago when I did that one, you can watch it new. It will be live. You can put your comments in there as always, and I will go ahead and answer them for you. Which reminds me, if you are watching this live, put in #live. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know what you teach. And if you are watching this on the replay, put in #replay, and still let me know where you're teaching and what you teach so we can make a community together. Also, before I forget, because I always do, please like and subscribe if you find any value in this. It helps get the algorithm out to other people so other people can see the video. We hit our first 1,000 subscribers, so I thank you if you already subscribed. That's a great milestone I've been working on for the past couple of years, and I'm glad that we finally have got that, so it's thanks to you for that. Also, I want to let you know that we have got our back-to-school boot camp going on right now, and it's not too late to jump in. If you're interested in joining us for the boot camp, it's 10 classes to help you get started and reduce your stress with back to school. You can go to mm.us/bootcamp to join us. And I see Judy is here with us. Welcome, Judy, on Facebook. She is from Quincy, Illinois, and she's a German language teacher. Oh, that's so rare. That was actually my major, Judy, years and years ago, but I have never had the pleasure of teaching it. So, wie geht's? And welcome, welcome, welcome for joining us today. So let's go ahead and get started. And first we're going to talk about some common challenges and solutions in transitioning to comprehension-based instruction. So the first thing is colleague resistance. Sehr gut. Judy says sehr gut. For those who don't speak German, that's very good. That's good to hear. So there's a couple of strategies that we can take with this, with colleague resistance. Now, I have been fortunate in my teaching. I've been teaching for I'll be starting my 23rd year this year. Um, and only my first 4 years of teaching was I at a school where comprehensible input was not the actual focus. In every school since then I have taught at, um, we actively sought out CI teachers. That was the expectation, how you were going to teach. All of that kind of stuff was in place. But in that first school I taught in, I was the only one doing comprehensible input, and I got a lot of resistance. Back then, I was in a very academic oriented high school. I was in a high performing high school where passing the AP exam was the goal. And back then, it was right before the change where grammar was still a big part of the AP exam. That's not what they focus on anymore. And so they kept telling me I need to focus more and more on grammar with my students. So one of the things that you can do when you have this resistance with colleagues is to start with an open dialogue. Now, I was a young teacher and I was really gung-ho about comprehensible input, and I may have promoted it a little bit more than maybe I should have felt as comfortable doing. But my excitement overshadowed all of that, and I didn't do it the best kind of way. And people kind of took it as my way was better than your way, and I kind of, perpetuated that. So I don't recommend doing that type of thing. But have an open dialogue. You can organize informal meetings or discussions to share the benefits and successes of CI with your colleagues. Don't put it as a me versus them or CI versus traditional. Just focus on the successes that you've had in there and the benefits to your students. And if you focus on that, if we are really in our profession for the betterment of students, if we are really thinking about the kids and putting the kids first, they should be open to type of these ideas, because we all want our students to be successful, and we all want to know that what we're doing in our classroom has benefits, good benefits for our students. So nobody should be able to argue with those types of things. The second strategy are demonstration lessons. Now, my past school, what was really great, we were a really close team, and we volunteered to actively observe each other all the time. So we would say at least twice per month that we would have to go in and observe another teacher for at least 15 minutes. Most of us would stay for the whole period, but we learned a lot from that. And so you can invite your colleagues to observe you in your classroom, to show them what you're doing in the classroom and show them how the CI actually works in their classes. They may be more open to trying some of those techniques when they see them unfold live in your classroom and how students are responding to them. And they may only take small steps. They might not want to completely make that change over, but maybe they'll take, a conversation and do some more conversation days. Or maybe they'll take a storytelling and do some storytelling in class, just little bit nibbits. Maybe the picture talk really interests them and they want to try that in their classroom, or maybe a movie talk. You can share these ideas with them and they'll be more open to trying some of these things, maybe even just at a small aspect. Another strategy would be sharing your resources. So provide your colleagues with research articles, books, or successful CI lesson plans to ease their transition. So usually if you start throwing them research articles or books, you kind of come across a little pushy. So I wouldn't recommend that too strongly unless it's in a very casual way. I know we just finished our first book club book. We did The Fastest Way to Fluency, TPRS 2.0. And so if you've read a book like that and you found it really interesting, you might just suggest, I've really found this book really interesting. I think you might be interested. You want to try it and do something like that. Another book that we are reading is Common Ground, which is talking about using, Krashen's acquisition theory, comprehensible input theory in the classroom, and that's our second book. And that's research based, and you can say, that really helped me. Maybe you can learn from this as well. But don't be too pushy in that way, because it can come across very, very pushy in there. Does anybody else have any suggestions how they have been working with their colleagues and their colleagues aren't doing CI? Anybody else? Okay, the next topic, we're going to talk about student resistance to change. Now, I didn't have much of this in my years because most of my students didn't experience the traditional teaching methods. They didn't really experience that, except in my first year of teaching. So, my first 4 years, my first school I taught at. There was often a schedule change that would happen at the end of the first semester, and some classes were only semester-long classes, so some of those kids changed and may have changed from one teacher to the next at the middle of the year. And so some of those students who weren't accustomed to how I taught using comprehensible input might have shown a little bit of resistance. The previous classes were traditionally lighter loads for them, and I don't mean to put down any teachers that way. That was saying they weren't being rigorous in their classrooms. They were. But the students predicted and knew exactly what to expect. They could read the chapter, they could do all the exercises in the chapter, all the exercises in the workbook, memorize the vocabulary and the grammar rules, and be good. Where mine was more of an interactive classroom, and we didn't spend a lot of time with those activities in class. So some of those kids had that initial resistance to change, but they quickly got won over. I haven't really had a big struggle with getting kids interested in doing less book work and having more fun in the classroom. But here are some strategies if that's what you find in your class, in your school. Perhaps you're teaching in the upper levels and they've had all these years, both middle school and the lower levels in high school, they have had, the traditional grammar-based methods. And so that level 3 or level 4 or AP or IB, it could be a big change for them. So the first thing is maybe a gradual integration. Or if you're making a change, I forgot to even mention, if you're making the change from traditional methods to CI, and last year you used traditional methods and this year you're using CI, and you have a lot of the same students. So you're going to start by incorporating CI or comprehensible input activities like story telling once a week and gradually increase the frequency. So pick an activity, whether it be picture talk or movie talk, story listening or story asking, whatever activity that you like, or even just conversations, and slowly integrate these into your workflow so that the kids aren't seeing a big drastic change from traditional to CI. Another strategy is getting students involved. Let students vote on stories or topics to build investment and excitement. That is the beauty of story asking versus story listening or storytelling, because you are co-collaborating with students to create a story, and that lets them own that story, and they find that much more engaging, and they're less likely to complain. Now, if you're not comfortable completely giving the reins over to students, I can completely understand that. When I started, I was not either. I only let them choose the name and like the hair color and eye color and maybe the city where they lived. Judy says, this is what I did last year is I took over the classrooms. Awesome. Yeah, the gradual thing really, really does help. And were you referring to the gradual change and doing it one step at a time, or let students vote on the stories, Judy? As I was saying, you can use training wheels. And how I will start with training wheels is movie talk. So there you get a short video clip and you use screenshots to help you tell the story and ask lots of questions to get engagement from your students. And then show them the punchline when they show the video. And then you can do a reading on that. That's kind of like story asking on training wheels, because you don't have to think up a story or co-collaborate so much. You have a story there, but you're still getting a lot of input from your students. Then you can kind of take half the training wheels off using a picture talk, and you start talking about the picture. And then you can develop that picture into a story by asking leading questions, like whatever the picture is. Let's say my famous one is an orangutan who has a mouthful of apples. So I can say, why does this orangutan have all this mouthful of apples? And we can get some ideas from there, and that will get me kind of my plot started. Senorita Thornton says, do you preload the vocabulary before the movie talk? I do not. That's a great question. I do not, because I do not pick a movie talk based on vocabulary. And the original idea of movie talk from the inventor, he actually discouraged this and actually wrote a letter to us in the CI world that says, if you are going to be targeting a vocabulary or a grammar with a video clip or a video, then please do not call it movie talk, because that's not what I envisioned with this. And so I think they call that, we renamed it to clip chat. I don't do that. For me, my whole idea is picking a movie talk 100% for the interest level of my students. So because I'm using, high frequency vocabulary, that's going to easily come up in anything that I choose to talk about. So I don't preload the vocabulary. And so I still call what I do movie talk, because I still do it the way the inventor of the method did it. I pick a video or a clip based 100% on student interest, and I just talk about the pictures. Now, what I do is I will, on each slide, because I have a screenshot for every slide, I will put key vocabulary that my students would not know that is specific to that video on there. Now, it's not with the expectation that they have to memorize that vocabulary, because that's not my goal at all. Most of the time, it's not high frequency vocabulary, so it's just for me telling the story about the movie talk. But it's there to help them. I also usually put a base sentence that describes what's going on in that slide as well, to help me get something to jump off of and scaffold it for my lower end students. The students are still struggling to learn it. Senorita Thornton says, thank you. I feel less stressed to try it. Absolutely. You don't have to try to target anything. Just have fun with the videos. Start with really short ones, like a minute or 2 minute videos. I am famous for being able to stretch a 3-minute video into a 3-week lesson, because I will take the time to go through every slide that I have and tell the story in complete detail. And then I end up with doing a reading with it. So I'll write down the story as well, and we'll do a reading with it afterward. So I can stretch out a 3-minute video easily into a 2 or 3 week lesson plan. And so those are the, with the training wheels is there, the picture talk and the movie talk. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and then take the training wheels completely off and just come in with a 4 sentence or 4 keys to a skeleton story. And that's what I do when I'm doing a story completely off the cuff with my students. I don't have any idea what the story is going to be. I just come in with my 4-sentence framework. There is a character. They have a problem. They try to solve the problem, but fail. And then they successfully solve the problem. And you can remember this with 4 keywords: character, problem, failure, success. And so that's what I go in. And all my job is to ask leading questions and to listen for the best answers and accept those best answers into the story. So I'll ask, we need a character, and I'll be doing this in the target language. What's going to be our character? Is it going to be an animal, a person, or a thing? And then we start developing it. What kind of animal or what kind of thing? And I'll spend the time really developing that character on that first day. I don't even get to the story until at least the second day. We're talking about their age, their family, their friends. What do they look like? What emotions do they have? What do they like to do? All of those types of things, and develop that. And all I do is ask the questions. How old are they? What color eyes do they have? What color hair do they have? Is their hair long or is it short? Or are they bald? All those kinds of questions. And then on the second day, I'll just kind of review that information. And then I'm going to start with my, oh no, there's a problem. What's the character's problem? And then that gets us started with the story. And then we can have the character try to do something to solve the story, but fail at that. And then finally they can do something that helps them solve their problem. It's the standard format of any story that you've ever read, heard, or watched, whether it be TV or movies. Every story works the same way. They have a character or multiple characters. There's some kind of conflict. The characters try to solve the conflict. And like in longer things like movies, they try to solve the conflict multiple times and fail before they finally solve the conflict. So use that same kind of strategy to build those stories with your students. But you might have to scaffold yourself to get there. It's not something that you can do. Maybe on day one, you're not confident. So start with that movie talk, then wean yourself off the movie talk and do the picture talk, and then go into complete story asking. Now, for me, as I was saying earlier, I pick movie talks based on student interest. I also use them to break up the monotony, because although it's the same thing, I'm asking a story, it feels different to my students because it's based off of a video. So I might, do one movie talk every couple of months, or maybe one movie talk a month, depending on my schedule. And so that kind of breaks up the monotony a little bit, gives them something a little bit different. And I usually do around 2 to 3, sometimes 4 movie talks a whole year. And then the last strategy to overcome your student resistance is clear communication. Share the success stories and research about CI benefits with students to build buy-in. I talk about Krashen to my students. I mean, I don't actually mention his name. Actually, I lie. I do sometimes, because I teach Spanish and we have Senor Woolley, and in one of the videos, he plays a part in the video. So we talk about him then. But I do talk in the beginning of the school year how we actually acquire language, and that I ask them first, I kind of like prep them to kind of fall right into my trap. I ask them, what is the point of you being in this class? And there's not a single kid who tells me to memorize vocabulary and to memorize grammar rules. They say to be able to speak the language fluently. And although we know in a year or 2 years or 3 years they're not going to be fluent at all, but they're not 100% wrong. That is our job. Our job is to teach them to be able to speak and to a lesser extent write the language. And so I talk about how that happens naturally with kids. Do your parents, when they taught you your first language, did they give you a dictionary or a vocab list and a grammar book? No. What did they do? Or have you seen your parents teach your siblings the language? What did they do? And we kind of talk about that and get them kind of idea and preload them with the ideas of what we're doing, so they can kind of see why we're doing what we're doing. And that really helps to get the buy-in. I also like to make a lot of comparisons with like sports or music or dance or any of those other classes. Not the classes that are what I consider academic classes like math and science and social studies and English, because those are classes that you can actually study for. But classes like PE, music, choir, woodshop, dance, art, those kinds of classes, you don't get a textbook to read and learn how to do those things. You actually have to get yourself dirty and get yourself in there and actually do them. And so language is very much like that. And so that's the kind of thing that we're trying to talk about here. And so I usually get some buy-in when I say that. I'm like, okay, you football players, if your coach gives you the playbook and the rule book, how to play football, and then the specific plays for your school, and says, great, study that. I'll see you on Friday for Friday night's game. how are you going to perform? And they're like, we're not going to be able to. That's right, because you actually have to get on the field and actually play and practice the sport. And it's not any different. Sorry, I hit my hands and I almost set off the fall detection on my watch. That's how you're going to actually learn to play football and learn how to play it well. And it's not any different than our language classrooms. Next, let's address teacher comfort and confidence. So whenever we try something new, we always feel uncomfortable and very self-conscious about what we're doing. That's no different here. And I remember Blaine Ray saying this, and I don't know where he got it from or who the original person is, but he said, anything worthwhile is worth doing poorly at first. Meaning that whenever you start something new, you're always going to suck at it. Really, you are. It's brand new. And so as you work at it, as you practice it, as you do it more often, your comfort and your confidence level and your skill level increases. So don't worry. He also said many times that doing CI or TPRS poorly is generally much better than what most people do with traditional teaching. So give yourself the permission to not be good at it in the beginning. Give yourself permission to feel uncomfortable and to not have confidence. But as you grow, you will get more comfortable and you'll build that confidence. When I started way back in 2001 doing this, I had a concrete script that I wrote out. I wrote it out on 8.5 by 11 paper. I cut it in half. So I had these little half sheets stapled together. They were on like big font print, so I didn't have to squint. They were 14 font. And it was kind of like Oprah Winfrey, how she had her little blue cards that she would refer to as she went through her show. Well, I had the sentences that I wanted to work on. I usually had one sentence per half sheet of paper with like 15 questions underneath it that I would ask about that. And then I would only have a few things I would let my students change because I did not feel comfortable or have the confidence to go off script yet. So gosh be it, if I wrote it was a boy, gosh darn it, it was going to be a boy. And all I would let my kids do is describe who that boy was. And if he was going to go to Walmart, for gosh darn it, that's where he was going. I wasn't letting my students choose that something else like a Target or, another store. They could choose maybe the city. I might have been comfortable enough with them showing where the Walmart was, but anything that could possibly change the outcome of my story, absolutely, positively not. I left it all in there. And then I gradually got more confidence and I generally let them have more control. And it really is a stress reliever when you finally can let go of the story and give them control. You think that'd be very stressful, but actually it relieved a lot of stress for me. And so the first strategy is always, for anything, practice makes perfect. So do it in your classroom. Role play activities with colleagues who are also trying it out. Record your practice sessions or record your classroom. Even if you're not going to be putting this on the internet, but try not to get your kids' faces. I usually put my camera at the back of the room so I'm seeing the back of the heads of all my students. But if it's for your own use, it really doesn't matter. Because what do sports teams do? They record their games and then they have debriefs about them. Do the same kinds of things. Even if you don't share with another CI teacher, you just do it for yourself. You can look and analyze and see what you're doing. You can also have teachers observe you live and give you some pointers along the way. But practice, practice, practice. You have to go in and do it each and every day so that you can start to feel comfortable. And in the beginning, you can say, you know what, students, I'm trying something new. This is new to me. It's new to you. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. So just roll with the punches here. Maybe they can even help you along the way. Next, we all know this, professional development is ever so helpful. So there's lots of ways you can get professional development nowadays. When I started out, we did not have online training like we have now. So you have online workshops, online webinars. You have online PLCs like growing with proficiency. And let's see, La Familia Loca. Those are two that I know of right off the top of my head. We offer at Immediate Immersion, we offer a lot of online workshops. We offer an online conference as well. Then there's also other professional development throughout the year that you can attend. There's lots of regional conferences that you can attend. There are, in the summer, there are, three major, is it three? There's four now. Four major conferences you can attend. There's the Agen workshop in Agen, France, which is about an hour outside of Toulouse. You have the NTPRS conference that changes location every year. You have the Fluency Matters conference, which also changes every year. And then the new one is the CI Summit, which also changes its location every year. So there's lots of different places that you can do that. But find places where you can attend comprehensible workshops, whether they be online or in person, to practice, to gain new skills, new ideas, lots of different things. Read books like the new book, this one just came out this summer, The Fastest Way to Fluency, TPRS 2.0. It gave me some really good ideas, and I'm excited to try out this coming fall. So lots of different things there, but constant training. We tell our students that you need to be lifelong learners, and we have to absorb that as well and become lifelong learners ourselves. And then you also need to reflect upon your practice. So I do this in my classroom with my students at least once a week. I have them write in their composition books in the common language, which for my classes are in English. Absolutely. Senorita Thornton says, can you show that book again, please? Yes, it is The Fastest Way to Fluency, TPRS 2.0. It's only available on one place. You can't get it on Amazon. It is available only on tprsbooks.com. They've not made it available on Amazon as of yet. So you can go there. It's by Blaine Ray and his son Vaughn Ray, the inventor. Well, Blaine is the inventor of TPRS. And it was a really good book. And I think Blaine and Vaughn are going to be doing a book club, a book study of this book coming up in the fall. I don't know anything more about that, but go to their website. They might have it on there. You're so welcome. So as I said, I have my students reflect in English because I want them to be able to have the full breadth of their expression about their learning, what things are helping them, what things are hindering them, what are they having trouble with, what do they feel successful about. So reflection is really a great skill to have, that metacognition factor in there. And so we also can do it with our teaching. So keep a teaching journal to reflect on what works well and what can be improved. You can do this on a weekly basis, or maybe at the end of the day, you just kind of quickly reflect about your, the lesson, what worked well, what didn't do well, what you change the next time. And it might be helpful, as I said, to do it on a daily basis, just a short little blurb, nothing really extensive on there. And maybe you can elaborate more at the end of the week, because you don't exactly remember on Tuesday when it's Friday what actually went well and what might not have. And this is such an important skill. I've been a IB teacher for the past 11 years. It's part of the lesson plan outline that we have to fill out when we're creating a lesson in IB unit. At the end is reflecting what things went well, what things went poorly, what will we change or tweak for the next time. And so it's a good practice to get into. So on a daily basis, just write a couple of quick notes about what went well and what didn't and what you might tweak, and then write a deeper reflection every Friday or every other Friday based on those quick little notes that you did, to really get some deeper thinking in there and see what works well for you. Next, let's talk about classroom management challenges. So I don't know about you, but I have always struggled with classroom management. It's something that I struggle with because I don't think they really prepare us very well for that in our teacher education. And some of you have a natural feel for it because you're parents, but I'm not a parent. I don't have children. So I don't have that look. And it's always funny, give that mother look or that father look. And I tried that, and my kids usually laugh at me. And I showed it to we were talking at lunch at one of my schools, and my team like, what's that look? What's your look? And I did, and they all laughed at me too. I just don't have it because I don't have that experience. So classroom management has always been a challenge for me, but it's something I've worked at year after year after year, and I'm finally comfortable in my classroom management skills. But I will say that moving to CI alleviated a lot of my classroom management challenges. And I'll tell you the second thing that I did that also alleviated a lot of my challenges. My first thing, though, I noticed is that there are usually two reasons why kids act up in class. I mean, there might be other ones, but these are the two main ones that most of us will encounter on a regular basis. The first is that they're bored. The kids are bored, meaning you either have lost them or you haven't challenged them enough. And so bored students are going to find something to entertain themselves, and 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be something that you would have chosen for them to do. This was me in my classes. Not to say I didn't have good teachers, I did. But for certain subjects, I was a quick learner, and I could learn it the first time they said it. So when they're repeating it over and over again, I was getting bored. And I didn't act out in a kind of, mischievous way. What I did is I always had a book, usually a Stephen King book, that I would be reading in class. And I would always frustrate the teachers because the teachers would try to, you're not paying attention. So they would ask me a question, but I was always right there to answer them because I had one ear open to what they were saying, and then the other ear was focusing on what I was reading. And I kept myself out of trouble that way. And then, but most kids aren't going to do something like that. You might have a couple of students. I've had some students in my past, maybe 2 or 3 in my past 20 some years, who have been readers and read in class, but they were always on task when they needed to be. And when I asked them questions, they were always on point. So I let them go because I figured they were kind of like me. The second way that classroom management problems happen is because the student is disenfranchised from school. They have met so many failures in the years before you as a teacher that they've just given up on school altogether. And especially when you get into high school, you see that a lot. And they've already had, a greater part of 8 years coming into high school with these, failures. And so it's going to be really hard to turn those around. It's a little bit easier in middle school because usually when they start having those failures is upper elementary to early middle school. So you still have some time to change them around. And in those situations, it's not about getting them more engaged. It's about giving them more success, giving them smaller pieces of success to build upon to bigger pieces of success. Because when they feel like, oh, I can do this, I am smart, then that's going to lead to them having further success. And the more success that they have, the more engaged they're going to be. So those are the two challenges right off the bat. But I have found that when I went to comprehensible input, I pretty much took out both of those because it's much more fun and much more engaging for my students. And so that boredom didn't happen very often. And then also because we work so hard to make ourselves comprehensible and give those successes to all of our students, not just the top and the mid-level students, but even our struggling students, those kids who were feeling like they never could succeed in school were having some success. And that allowed them to feel successful and be more engaged in the classroom. So going CI actually lessens some of the problems. But here are 3 strategies that we can talk about if you're still struggling with classroom management while you're in that transition. So number 1, this happens no matter what you teach, when you teach, is establishing clear routines. We just talked about this Yesterday in our back to school boot camp, which I was talking about, we've already had our first 2 classes, but you're welcome to still join. The classes were recorded and you can catch up on them. And you have a year's access to the whole curriculum that you can watch as we go along. But it will help reduce some of the stress in starting back to school. But you want to start establishing those clear routines on a regular basis. When you go and observe another classroom that's really well run, you're not going to see these routines because they're invisible if they're done right. But you want to start class with a consistent activity, like a daily story or a picture talk or a warm-up. You want to establish routines and procedures. What do they do when? One of my big ones is silent reading. We do it twice a week. And so my kids know, what do they do on silent reading day? They know when they first get into the classroom, the first thing they do is go to the library and get the book. Open the book up, read the book, and you read until the bell goes off. And then the timer goes off. I set the timer starting off at the beginning of the school year for like 3 minutes, and I increase it gradually until I get to a comfortable spot where it's enough time for them to read, but still letting them they still are asking for a little bit more time. I start the timer after I do attendance because I want to read as well, and I want to model that with them. So that's one of my routines. I have routines for what do you do when you get into the classroom? How do we exit the classroom? How do we pass back papers? How do we turn in papers? How do we do transitions from one thing to another? When we do songs, what's our expectations during songs? When we do stories, what are our expectations during stories? Think about all of the different things that happen in your classroom where things could go wrong, or that you want it done in a specific way, and come up with a simple, clear procedure that you can teach your students to do it. Now, you can't just tell them these procedures. You need to actually teach them, kind of like a fire drill. We don't just tell them where to go. We actually go there and we show them where it is and everything like that, so everybody knows what's going on. And they can feel it. They get the physical memory, the kinesthetic ability of it. It's the same thing in the classroom when teaching your classroom routines and procedures. Use of signals is another great idea. You've seen this before where some teachers will flash the lights on and off. Some will use a clapping signal. Some will just put their hand up like this to show that it needs to be quiet, or however, whatever signals you want to use. So use these hand signals or visual cues to manage student responses and engagement. Like if my kids aren't speaking loud enough, I'll put my hand up to the ear to let them know, I want some louder, I want some more responses in there. I could do a stop signal because I've got enough right now. We can do a quiet signal. This is our quiet signal. When they see this, I want them to be quiet. Instead of me shouting out, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, which just adds to the noise. So come up with some hand signals for some key things that go on in your classroom so kids see these and they know exactly what they need to do. And then lastly, positive reinforcement. I use Class Dojo for this. My fellow teacher a few years ago turned me on to it, and I love it. I used to give out actual participation points for positive reinforcement, but now I do it on Class Dojo, and it's so much easier. And I don't do this for a grade. They collect their points kind of like skee ball at Chuck E. Cheese, and then they can use their points to buy privileges or prizes in the student store, my own personal student store that I do. So anything that I see in my classroom that I want them to continue doing, whether it's specific to the target language or just specific to running a smooth classroom or helping their neighbor, I'm going to acknowledge that and reward that with positive participation. And I do that with Class Dojo. And the way that Class Dojo works is if it's on your screen, kids can hear, well, even if it's not on the screen, they'll hear the positive point. But if they're seeing the screen on the board, it will actually show which student got the positive point. So it will highlight that student so they can feel better about them. I love it because I can either do it, I have a tab open on my computer at the front of the room, but I also have the app on my phone. So as I'm walking around and noticing kids doing things I want them to be doing, I can go ahead and put the point, give them the point as going along. And it works really, really well. And then kids can log in and see their points and then spend their points in my store. So you can see the kinds of things I have in my store. It changes every year because I ask students what they want to buy. But you can go to my website and go to my free resources part. And it is at mm.us/resources. And then you can go ahead and download there what I do for those prizes. Next up, assessment and grading concerns. This is always a big one. So I use what I call proficiency-based grading. It's kind of like a playoff standards-based grading because I'm really working off the proficiency skills of my students, how well they can speak, write, understand what they hear, and understand what they see. So I really work hard on that. So a lot of it is not, the kind of assessments I do are not paper and pencil. They're alternative type of assessments, but they're not performance assessments. I don't like that term because performance implies memorization, and I'm working towards proficiency. So I do proficiency-based assessments. So you can use things like comprehension checks, exit tickets, or quick verbal summaries instead of traditional tests. So one of the things that Blaine and Vaughn Ray talk about in their book, The Fastest Way to Fluency, is what they call DTS, describe the situation. And so they'll have students, after a chunk of the story has been, talked about for a while, that they want to see how confident the students are with telling that in their own words. So they'll ask them to describe the situation in different viewpoints, from the main character's viewpoint, from a secondary character's viewpoint, from a third character's viewpoint, so that they're practicing different forms of the verbs in there as well. And this is only happening after the teacher is confident that the top students at least can do this. And then after the top students do it, then you follow with the mid-level students, so that now, maybe 20 to 25 out of 30 students have already gone, because those are the top and the mid. And then the struggling students have heard it 20 to 25 times already, that they should be able to now do it, albeit in a very simple way. But this is a way of assessing to see how confident they are, to see where they break down, so that you know what you need to actually try teaching or trying to instruct a little bit to help them hurdle. Because I think of us less like teachers and more like coaches, where coaches are looking for weaknesses in their player and their team, and then they're focusing on those to make them into strengths. And it's the same kind of thing we do in the classroom, and it's really, really important. So find alternatives, not always just pencil and paper. One of the fun things I do that really tells me if they were understanding the story that we did, because I can do this particular activity on any activity we did in class, and I have no prep that I have to do for it, is what's called the pencil game. And it's called that because in the traditional way of playing it, there's a single pencil between a pair of students, and they're supposed to grab the pencil. But it doesn't have to be a pencil. It could be any object. And then the idea of the game is that you ask true and false questions about whatever. It could be conversations, it could be a picture talk, a movie talk, a story, it could be a reading, it could be a novel chapter, whatever you have done in class, you're going to ask true and false questions about them. And the kids are going to be listening. If the answer is true, they're not supposed to do anything. If the answer is false, they're supposed to be the first one to grab the object. And then points work like this. If the answer was false and they have the object, it's +1. If the answer was true and they have the object, they lose a point. And if nobody grabbed the object, no points are gained or lost. I love this because I can really see, without a pencil and paper or coming up with a Kahoot or a Gimkit, to really assess whether my kids were getting what we are going for. It's fun for the students. And I also like it because lots of times the struggling students can win because the top student has taken more risks and gotten more wrong, and they have a negative score, and they have a greater negative score than the struggling students, because the struggling students are more hesitant to try to grab the object. So there are a lot of rounds where they don't gain a point, but they don't lose a point either. And so it's a really fun game, and they can feel a little bit of success when they beat who they perceive as a smarter kid for them. So I like that. So find ways of getting the information from your students in a little bit less of a traditional way. It also allows them, those who have, a test anxiety, when it's these types of ways and it's a little bit less formal, that anxiety will go down. Another idea is a portfolio assessment. So have students compile a portfolio of their work, including stories, drawings, and reflections. So you give them a framework of what you want them, what you're looking for, and then they self-select their work over a period of time to add that to the portfolio and maybe do some reflecting on it, why they chose that piece, why they think that piece is an example of their learning, all those types of things. It's another way to be able to do that with their students. And then rubrics. Rubrics are very important because the types of assessments that we do in class are generally not just simply right or wrong type of assessments. So you need a kind of a rubric. So you're going to write a rubric to align with CI goals. So if you're doing some type of a project, there's nothing in the rubric that's about the art or the design of it, because that's not part of language goals. We are working with how well kids speak, write, read, and understand the language. And so that's what your rubrics need to identify. I have some generic rubrics for speaking, writing, and conversations, and you can get them here at mm.us/rubrics. And you can download those for free, and then you can kind of see. You can either use them as is or make adjustments as needed for your thing. But that really, really helps because the kids see them and they know exactly what they're using, what the goals for them, what they need to focus on. And it's helping you as an instructor knowing what to focus on. Because when I started projects way back in the beginning, I graded, I'll be honest, a lot of them on how good they looked or how professional their video looked if they did a video type presentation, rather than focusing on the language that they were supposed to show me during that time. So this helps a lot, and it will get kids away from that rote memorization and making things all look pretty and really focus on what's important. And then lastly today, before we finish up with our transitioning to CI, is curriculum alignment. So we have to teach a curriculum, whatever it be, whether it be textbook based or it might be more of a looser curriculum based type thing. But we need to integrate our comprehensible input with our existing curriculum. So look at what you have to teach and find ways that you can teach it using comprehensible input. So this usually is not going to be giving kids a list of memorized vocabulary they're supposed to memorize, or a list of grammar rules that they're supposed to learn, or drill them on grammar rules. It might be taking the highest frequency of that vocab list and using them in context so kids learn them in a more natural way. Or it may be taking that grammar point that you have to teach and incorporating it into the classroom in a logical way. For example, if you have to teach the past tense, then ask kids what they did over the weekend, because that's a natural way to use the past tense in a natural context that is very helpful for students. So that's how you kind of want to do. So look at what you have to teach with your standards, your objectives that you have in your current curriculum, and slowly replace those activities with CI alternative activities that really focus on comprehensible input to teach those same things. Again, we're using our colleagues here. Another strategy is to collaborate with colleagues. If you have another colleague who teaches with CI in your school, that's great. Work with them, use them, come together, help each other. But if not, there are online PLCs. There is Growing with CI by Claudia Elliott. There is La Maestra Loca, who has La Familia Loca. That's Annabelle. And I just forgot what her current last name is. She got married a few years ago, and I forgot. Williamson, that's it. Annabelle Williamson. Those are two there. Or they are kind of like online Facebook groups. There's the IFLT/NTPRS Facebook group. So if you search on Facebook for IFLT NTPRS, you will find the group. You can join that. Then there are also specific language groups. I know there's one for French. There's one for German that I know of. I'm not sure if there's another for other languages, but those are the ones that I'm familiar with. I don't know of a specific one for Spanish. I know Claudia Elliott's group is only in Spanish, but it's not because it's only dealing with Spanish. It's just her language that she's most comfortable in communicating with. So that's what she teaches there. So if Spanish is yours, that's a good one to join. So there's lots of different things that you can do with all of that. But collaborate with colleagues, work with other teachers to share resources, ideas, strategies. Tell them your problems, your successes, so you can work together to help figure them out. It's always a great thing. We collaborate. Back in the day when I first started teaching, we were all solo employees. We went into our classroom, we shut our door, we did our thing, and then that was it. But now we need to be more of a team, a more professional learning community. We need to work together, and we are better together than we are as individuals. And then the last strategy I want to talk about is flexibility and pacing. So be open to adjusting the pacing of your curriculum to allow deeper comprehension and engagement. Here's the thing. The textbook generally says to spend 2 weeks on a chapter. And in that chapter, there are usually 3 grammar points, at least 1 cultural point, and at least 75 to 100 vocabulary words. Let's be honest, in 2 weeks, the kids have not mastered that material. So instead of using the calendar or the textbook to gauge your pace, use the students that are in front of you. That could be different per class. It could be different per year. Last year's kids might have gone faster than this year's kids. The point is, if you just follow the calendar or the textbook, you're going to lose students. And we don't want to lose students. So is it better that we got through the whole textbook like we were supposed to, all 15 chapters, but only this many students made it to the end with us and the rest we all lost? Or is it better that we've only got this much of the textbook covered, but all of our students made it to the end? Less is more because we can go deeper. It's better to go narrow and deep than shallow and wide. So think about that as you're doing that. You may not get through the whole curriculum, but what you do get through, you've gone really, really deep, and kids have really demonstrated mastery of that before you moved on. And that is so greatly important. Does anybody have any questions before we end today? And while you're doing that, I'll remind myself, as I'm reminding you, to again, if you found this helpful, please hit a like on that button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, as I said, we'll be talking about classroom management, but I will not be live, but I will still be answering your questions in the comments. It'll be a special encore presentation. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday. And then I'll be back live in 2 weeks. Remember, you can also join our back to school boot camp. It is not too late. It will get you ready for the start of the year. It will teach you on things to get ready for your start, including some classroom management stuff, as well as how to hit that back to school night out of the park. All of those things are really, really important. You can join us there. You'll have access for an entire year. We've already done 2 classes. Our next class is on Thursday. But again, you have access to the recordings if you can't participate live or if you missed any of them. So please, if you have any interest, you can join us there. If you have any questions that may come later, please put them in the comments. As I said, I check back often to answer them for you. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I wish everybody a great rest of the week, and I will see you live in 2 weeks. Have a great one, everybody.